Yo, Trojan family, what's going on? Welcome back to the USC LAFB show here in the LAFB network. I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud, live from the Dyrud Dojo. USC just wrapped up spring practice number 1. And let me tell you what, guys, it was just great to be back on campus. Great to get this little taste of football, even though it's short-lived, 15 practices, and then we get to go really into the offseason, which is always painful. But it's amazing to get this teaser, get this taste of spring ball, and fun to be out there. You could tell the environment, the attitude, the excitement around the program, the excitement around 30 plus freshmen on campus already at the facility, on the practice field, getting up to speed quickly. So just a really positive, which it is every year, right? You always enter spring with the hopes of a new season, the hopes of new reaching greater heights in the previous year. But I can say, like, day one of spring camps, this did feel a little bit different. Did feel a little bit more. Not that the morale's ever been low, but I think the expectations are known what is expected this year, and I think the confidence is high that can be accomplished based on the roster that is here, based on the returning guys that are coming back, plus the new influx of players from the portal and from this incoming freshman class. So just really excited to be here. I have a bunch of the 3 interviews up. We got Lincoln Riley, we got Jaden Mayava, we got Tobias Raymond. So those are all up on the USC LAFB channel, plus little sights and sounds videos if you like watching guys walk into the facility, or I should say into the practice field from the facility. If you like watching some of the individual drills, got that up for your viewing pleasure. And then now I just wanted to jump on and give a quick recap of kind of what I thought, saw, heard, and listened to while being here on USC's campus. So first thing to note, we spoke with Lincoln Riley after. He did mention there are 6 players who will likely miss all of spring camp. If they do participate, it will be in the very limited capacity. I think 4 of these are no surprise. 2, a little bit more of a surprise for this. Now, let me start by saying no real concern long term. These are guys that had all of them off-season procedures that are now just rehabbing and recovering before being cleared for full participation. There doesn't indicate, Lincoln Riley didn't indicate there'd be any fear of anything gutting into fall, even summer for that matter, but just spring, especially with them starting spring a little bit earlier than usual prior to spring break. Some of these guys will miss or be very limited at that. So the 2 kind of surprising ones that we didn't know about, Tanook Hines, wide receiver, who is, now the veteran in the room, if you will. There's some older guys on the roster, but he is the most tenured and has the most production returning from last year. So again, didn't seem serious, but he will likely miss all of spring. And starting right tackle, Justin Tauanuu, also offseason procedure. He was at practice today, but not participating. So those are your 2 kind of surprises. Kilian O'Connor, another one, I think still just rehabbing his procedure he had at the end of last year that caused him to miss the remainder of the season. So still trying to get back up to full speed. And on the defensive side, you have Christian Pierce, which I think was a surprise when we heard about it at spring media day, but no surprise since we knew that. So he will likely miss most of spring. He was there today. Jontez Williams, the transfer, the number 1 corner out of Iowa State, excuse me. We knew when he transferred, he was coming off injury. So we kind of knew he was going to miss spring most likely, or pretty much guaranteed to miss spring, and should be back good to go for fall. So he will miss. And then Chasen Johnson, again, just still kind of trying to get back to full speed from this season-ending injury he had last year. So not a big surprise, but one we hope will get back soon. Hopefully he can at least get in that limited capacity. So what do these injuries mean? Let's talk about that first, because no real concern long-term, like I mentioned. And so there's 2 sides of this, right? One, these are going to give valuable reps to other players, because you talk about essentially all 6 of these guys were starters last year. Now, obviously, Jontez Williams is new, but he's slated as a starter. Chasen Johnson was going to be the starter, really didn't play at all year. Kilian O'Connor stole that starting job at center. Tanook Hines became wide receiver 3, is likely going to be wide receiver 1 this season. Justin Tauanuu started right tackle all of last year, and Christian Pierce started the end of the season after other injuries mounted, and he is slated as the starting safety. So this is going to give valuable reps for all those guys that are behind him. The wide receiver room, we've said, wide open, regardless of Tanook Hines, it is wide open of who plays alongside him. Obviously, Terrell Anderson, the transfer from NC State, will have a bit of an upper hand. Zacharias Williams, we saw him getting work today with the slot. He's going to be have a good upper leg. And then freshman Trent Mosley, obviously a lot of excitement around him and what he can bring in that slot position. When you look at the offensive line, I mean, you've got Kenai Pepe coming in, the 5-star tackle who they're going to start on the right side. So he will now have the opportunity basically all spring to kind of get an upper hand to maybe become the starter of that right side alongside Elijah Page on the left. But you also have guys returning like Elijah Vicona. You have Aaron Dunn returning tackles. So you have guys that have gotten reps last year as well that now are going to get more reps this year with Justin Tauanuu out. So his injury, you feel for him because he's a guy, he is a returning starter, but his position, along with center, which I'll get to, are kind of the most wide open on the offensive line. And so he needs as many reps as he can get. But on the converse side, those guys behind him are going to get a lot of reps and a lot of run to potentially kind of take that job or at least have an upper hand going into fall camp. Now at center, we mentioned Kilian O'Connor, kind of the incumbent, the veteran, been with the program a long time, has gone through a lot of trials and tribulations. With him out, you have Tobias Raymond, who will likely take a lot of snaps at center. I think that's his projected spot for the NFL. So why not just move him there full time now? So he talked about that today, kind of the new terminology and learning kind of the checks with me and all that, and also just different technique and stuff being from center as opposed to one side of the offensive line. So he's going to get really needed reps. So it's kind of a blessing in disguise. You hate it for Kilian O'Connor, but a blessing in disguise for him to get a lot more of those reps with the ones. But then you think of guys like Willie Washer. We've talked about Brett Colajay as a true freshman and a guy that he can potentially seize a starting role as a true freshman. He's going to get a lot of reps at both guard and center. So really wide open, even with 5 returning starters on the offensive line because of some injury and just because of some talent influxed in. It's really wide open. I would say kind of outside of Elijah Page. Even Alani Noah is your longest tenured starter kind of on the offensive line, but with how the season ended and some unknown there, there's going to be even a big competition at right guard for his spot as well. So defensively, again, talented defensive back room, return of Marcellus Williams. He's kind of the most tenured guy, really that's played meaningful snaps. When you look at that secondary outside of Jontez Williams, but he hasn't been in this system with this team. And no one's really been with this system, obviously, with Gary Patterson here, a little bit new there. But so who can kind of seize that role? Elbert Hill, true freshman, a lot of excitement around him. RJ Sermons, who has just grown exponentially since joining campus last summer and seeing how he can get up to speed. Will they really want him on the outside? Will he play a little bit more, maybe safety or nickel? We'll kind of see him rove around and see what that does. And so with Chasen Johnson and Jontez Williams being out for spring, who are your 2 slotted starters, that gives you a lot of opportunity for some of these younger guys to get a lot of reps, which will only pay dividends in the season. Even if Williams and Johnson maintain the starting role going into fall, at least all these younger guys now can be more up to speed if needed, like we've obviously seen in years past. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. And then at safety with Christian Pierce, banged up, you have Kennedy Urlacher, and you have some other guys, Peyton Dyer, Madden Reorder as your freshman safeties, plus some other rovers that'll come around. So a lot of opportunity at safety as well, with Christian Pierce kind of being out for most of, if not all of spring. So there's kind of your injury update. Again, nothing concerning, but I think it'll be a big opportunity for some of these younger guys to get a lot of meaningful reps. Just a couple, I guess, notes or tidbits that I noticed. Again, we can only really watch the individual drills in the beginning of practice, so can't take a ton away from that. I did want to mention about Jonas Williams, freshman quarterback. And this is not at all to do any knock on Hassan Longstreet, who I think is going to be a very talented he is a talented. He's going to be a very good quarterback. And I don't want to ever be that guy that's like, okay, someone leaves, the new guy, well, we wanted the new guy anyway. That's not at all what I'm trying to get at. But just looking from a physical standpoint, like it certainly looks like Jonas Williams is bigger than Hassan Longstreet and has a little bit more arc on his passes. Like one thing I always mentioned about Longstreet, and I loved his arm talent and his strength. But at least on the long ball, he didn't put a lot of air on a lot of those passes. And I don't think that's a huge deal. I think that's like a game changer or a game wrecker. But it was just something I noticed. And it seems like Jonas Williams already is a little bit more polished in that regard. Again, we saw such limited snaps, hard to make full summation on that, but that was just a little notice. Was a little bit more air on some of those deeper throws, and physically already looks bigger in terms of height and just built out a little bit more. And Hassan Longstreet was like chiseled. So that's not a knock on his physicality, but just Jonas Williams already looking like a little bit of a bigger quarterback than what Longstreet was. Which, take it for what you want, might be music to your ears, might be just some random thoughts there. So that was one notice with Jonas. Jade Mayava, you can tell, leader of the team. This is his team. Has already seized, it's been his team, right, since last year. You can see he's more vocal. You can see he's more comfortable in that role and just more complimentary in kind of leading the group, leading the guys. And it'll be fun when we can, if we're able to see a little bit more than individuals, or at least have some more questions. Again, this is day one. So even when we're talking to guys after, it's like, what can you really surmise from 1 hour and a half long practice on day one of spring? So the other really just note, and then I'll have probably a lot more. I'll be back here tomorrow morning. Just the size of all these guys. I mean, last year you could start to see the shift a little bit. 2 years ago, this was a completely different team in terms of roster buildup based on size. I mean, you've got 2 offensive linemen pushing 4 bills. You've got defensive linemen all in like the 320 plus range. You've got edge guys 270. All your backers, I talked about this last night, all your backers are 230 plus. And so just the sheer size of all of these guys is such a stark difference than what we saw just 2 years ago coming into spring. So that is going to pay dividends for this program. That is going to pay dividends in the Big Ten. And that is the philosophy moving forward for Lincoln Riley and this recruiting staff, is starting with big bodies and then being able to develop, enhance that technique and getting them playing to the best of their ability. But you already have the size, because you can't teach size. You can't teach that. So you either have it or you don't. These guys have size. Kenai Pepe, I mean, dude's 18. Mammoth. Talanoa Ely looking great from the linebacker position. So pure size. If you watch the sights and sounds video I have up, or what we heard and what we saw video I have up, you'll be able to see some of that as guys are coming out. So yeah, you got to be excited about that. And then last thing, and just we were able to see some individual of the linebacker moves. And this is, again, no knock on Rob Ryan. He was there today. Love that he's still with the team, and obviously just his smarts and what he can probably do on a whiteboard is where he's going to bring tremendous value. But seeing Mike Eckler out there with the group and his, not that Rob Ryan wasn't emotional, but Mike Eckler's just raw emotion and shouting, and like he's like running the drills. He's showing exactly how to do it. He's given different breakdowns and stuff like this. So I think there's just going to be a little different element in what he brings to the room than maybe was there last year. You're still going to get the smarts and the intelligence from Rob Ryan and the experience from Rob Ryan, but you'll get a little bit more of the on-field, not, I don't want to say tutelage, but demonstration. There you go. You'll get more on-field demonstration from a guy like Mike Eckler of like, hey, this is exactly how you do this. This is where your hands need to be. This is how your legs are chopping down when you're hitting the hole and this running back's hitting the A gap or whatnot. So fun to see. So you can tell I'm fired up. First day back, spring camp. What's not to be excited about, right? The team is undefeated right now. All the hopes in the world are on the horizon. So we can be fired up and just get excited to see these guys get back to work. So there we have it. Day one of spring camp wrapped up. I'll be back tomorrow bright and early. We'll be back on Friday. Be here all of March covering everything you need for USC. So make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And yeah, be here all the time. Appreciate your family. As always, fight on.